Hey everyone, thanks for listening. I'm Lisa Chastain, your host at Real Money, and I have an amazing guest today, Kate Wind. Hi, Kate.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so grateful you're here. And as always, to my listeners, for those of you who are listening live, I'm so grateful you're here, that we have a great show planned for you. And if you're listening to the replay, let us know either way on YouTube, on the podcast, what you enjoyed about this episode and share it out with your friends. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So Cashley, have been mentoring her in astrology.
Yes.
And she's like, you've got to have Kate on. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Bring it. And a part of Real Money is having a well-rounded whole conversation about money, not just the logical side and the facts and the information about money. It's like, who are we as whole humans? And how are we operating in the world connected to the decisions that we're making financially, which is why I'm really grateful you're here, because it ties a lot of what we've been talking about this year together.
Yay.
Yay.
I'm excited to share my knowledge. And absolutely, as a full-time astrologer and Feng Shui consultant, when I got the invite to be on a money show, I thought, wow, I wonder if people have a hard time putting those two together. Like, what is that? What does astrology and Feng Shui have to do with money? Like, why is she a guest? So I'm excited to talk and discuss my experience with money, of course, and just how I've helped other clients with maybe some insight about what's going on with their money using those tools with astrology and Feng Shui.
Yeah. Well, let's take a step back, and will you do a more formal introduction to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Kate Wind. I'm a second generation astrologer and Feng Shui consultant based in Las Vegas. But I have clients all over the world. I do the majority of my work via phone for astrology. And then the Feng Shui typically is in person, but I do have some clients that we do a Zoom call, and, I help them with their space from a distance.
I love that. I love that.
And, I started in the corporate world. And so, a lot of people are like, well, how did you get into astrology, right? Or you do that full time, or, you just do that for fun, right? That's like your
just
side thing. Yeah, just for fun. And no, it's my full-time thing. But I started in the corporate world at 18 here in Las Vegas and worked my way up in the hotels. And it just got to a point where, I was sitting in my office like, I am not happy, the industry was great to me. I love the people that I worked with, but I just wasn't being fulfilled. And it all came to a tipping point on a plane.
In 2016?
In 2017.
2017.
Yeah. I was on a plane, and I thought, when I get home, I'm going to put my notice in. And I didn't have one client. I didn't even know what my business was going to look like. I just knew if you don't jump, if you don't make the change, nothing's going to change. I had to do it. And it was just so interesting, because you would think, even looking back on it now, I'm like, how did you do that, Kate? How did you come to that conclusion? Right. But I could tell more so from the people around me. When I put my notice in, they said, well, you can always come back. What are you going to do with health insurance? Everyone was so concerned about these very trivial things that I thought that's what we put out there in the world, right? That you can't just go and pursue your dream and be successful and make money. That everyone was just like, okay, well, when you kind of come to your senses, you can come back.
Yeah. To the real world.
To the real world.
Oh my gosh. I had the same experience with my family. Yeah. When I was like, I'm leaving. They were like, but what about this? And what about that? And I was like, I don't really care at this point. Yeah. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Thankfully, my parents were very supportive. I was in Bali when my mom messaged me. So I had my breakthrough on the plane.
To Bali?
Well, I was on the way to Vietnam at the time. Okay. Spent a couple of days there. Then we went down to Bali, and my mom sent me a message via WhatsApp. And she says, have you had any breakthroughs about work on this trip? And I thought, why is my mom messaging me about work? And in case I wasn't clear, my mom was an astrologer. My mom's been a full-time astrologer since the 80s. And I thought, she must be looking at my chart. Something's going on that she's asking me about work. And I thought, there's no way I can tell my mom I'm quitting my corporate job, what's providing me the luxury to take weeks off at a time, go to Bali, go to Vietnam, via text message. But I had some tequila that helped. Had a couple shots of tequila. And I just said, when I get home, I'm going to submit my notice. And, my parents, although they're very liberal in their thinking, they're very conservative when it comes to money, and just being grounded. And my mom responded back, we support you. We'll be at the airport to pick you up. And
Wow.
And so her and my dad had like come up with kind of like a game plan. And they picked me up from the airport and talked about like, how can I join in with my mom on some of the stuff that she was doing, but also pursue my astrology career, like as an individual and what I wanted it to look like.
Did you know in that breakthrough that it was astrology that you wanted to pursue, or did you just know you needed to leave?
I just knew I needed to leave. And I, when I went to UNLV, I got my degree in psychology. I always wanted to help people. And so I thought, well, maybe it'll be like a coaching mixed with astrology. I had no idea. I had no idea what it was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so those first couple months I was exploring all the different like astrology, tarot, feng shui, seeing like what I loved about it. How can I do it different than my parents had done it? And that's when I kind of worked into my niche.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
For every woman listening to the show, we could end the show right there.
Right.
Like, just go friggin'
Just
do it.
Absolutely.
And it's the fear and the attachment to what money is or security or beliefs that stop people.
The ego. I was in a high position and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have like vendors wanting to take me to dinner, or, oh my gosh, it's embarrassing to even just say that on camera, but there was a lot of perks that came with that corporate position. And I remember being like, am I going to be okay to walk away from that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, it's so
Am
silly.
I going to be okay?
It's so silly now.
But in the moment, it's actually really serious.
Yeah.
It's really serious. And I had a guest on a few weeks ago, Lindsay Paoli, when we were talking about how money stops us from living our most authentic lives.
Yeah.
And and what people say when they come into my world is that they want to live their authentic life, but it's money that's stopping them.
Yeah.
And here you are saying, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And I'm encouraged, for any woman, any person really that's on the edge of making a big decision like that, it would be great to talk through your experience of that. It sounds like your parents were a great support. Not everybody has that.
Sure.
And there's some things that unfolded from there that helped you get to where you are today. What are some of those things once you made the decision? I think first, that's like a good nugget, a good takeaway is make the decision.
Make the decision. Well, I think leading up to that piece where I finally did it, I was already considering like, okay, I knew this wasn't going to last forever. And so always, since I was younger, I've always been about like, how can I make side money? I've always loved it. The side hustle, right? Like, and I mean, it started at a very young age. Like I'd go to Goodwill and find a piece of furniture and repaint it and be like, okay, how can I resell this? Before it was really, this was before Facebook Marketplace and all these are yard sales, right? So when I was in my corporate position, I started running Airbnb out of my home. And when I started Airbnb, there were 7 listings in Las Vegas. Like this was very early on. I've always been like an early adapter to these new things. And I took all that.
Like let strangers into your home
did.
As a woman in Las Vegas?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hosted thousands of people in my home and it was such an amazing experience. It was really cool. I'm not saying that's for everyone.
Sure.
Right. But it allowed me to have that extra income to be able to start saving. And knowing like, if I get to this point, like I'll be financially sound. Granted, I didn't want to tap into it. If that's not the goal, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna live off this money. But I had to put together a budget and say, okay, the Ubers need to be cut out. The extra cocktails need to be cut out. And I said, well, worst case scenario, I have $3,000 coming in a month on Airbnb. Worst case scenario, if I don't get one client, how can you live off of this?
So it was actually having multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
That helped.
Yeah.
Ladies
Absolutely.
Listening.
Yeah.
Multiple streams of income and also being aware of your finances and being responsible for that. It wasn't just like you jumped out of a plane without a parachute.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes hard to digest, to be like, I'm a corporate woman. I have a nice income salary coming in, but also to know like I'm willing to put in that extra work to run the Airbnbs. And because there was a lot of sacrifice there was, but I knew like the payoff for this in the long run and I didn't know what it was going to be at that time. When I started Airbnb, I wasn't like, this is so I quit my corporate job in 2017, but I just knew like, I have that extra money, like in case anything happens, like, or even just, we all lived through a pandemic. None of us were predicting like that's how it's going to play out. So you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. You don't know.
Yeah.
A paycheck is one of the falsest sense of securities. Actually, I don't know if we've really talked about this on the show. So it's a good way to solidify that concept is it's a real false sense of security.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you don't know.
You don't know.
And in my case, it was something that I chose to do, but you don't know, like if you got injured or if something happened to a family member and you had to step out, or the company closed because someone else was mismanaging money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. That's a great point. And looking at your whole experience, so tying this all to astrology and into Feng Shui. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to say you were listening to yourself, and then you had that confirmation from your mom. From a young age, did your mom embed concepts of astrology into you? Were those conversations you had often growing up?
Yeah. So that's interesting because my parents and I would probably disagree on that. Okay. My parents would talk about it. Of course, my mom would come home from an appointment, and discuss like, oh, what happened, or she would say things like, well, that makes sense. Saturn's in Libra or whatever it was. But my parents claim that I acted like I had no interest in it.
Okay.
So they just said, we had no idea that you were interested in it because you just acted so like blasé about it. Like I never was like asking them questions, right? Because I had these amazing tools at my fingertips that I really never took advantage of growing up. So the language was in the home, and at the time we had a home phone, which is where the clients would call, and so people would call in and be like, is your Mary available? I'm like, oh, she's in an appointment. And they'd be like, well, tell her that Neptune hit my moon and everything that she said came true. So I'm like 9 years old at the pen pad and paper writing down like Neptune moon. I have no idea what this means. Now, absolutely. I could, talk to you about 30 minutes about what that means. So I was raised with the language. And it was also interesting, like when my parents moved to Vegas in the 80s, they had a talk radio show late night, and I was a baby. I was in my baby carriage.
Yeah.
And they would bring me into the studio and I would just sleep through the night. But my parents' kid now, like, she must have been listening the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Because of just like how natural it all played out once I decided like, I'm going to go back to my roots and live closer to the authentic person that how I came into this environment, into this world.
Listening to your calling.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think a lot of us can learn from that, of if we just had the courage to listen and not reject or push away our past or our, who we are.
I think so often though, right? We go out and we want to do things our own way. We all kind of go through that rebellious, whether it's our teens or our 20s. And then it's like, then we start reverting back to our childhood. Like, what were our traditions? Like, what did we do at the holidays? And it's like, we go out and explore, but then so many times we end up coming back to where it all started.
We do. I said, I give parents this one thought when it comes to money, and then we'll shift gears. Yeah. But it's, parents will come to me all the time as a money expert and say, hey, we want our kids to learn about money. Can you teach our kids about money? Yeah. And I'm like, sure, absolutely. And they're going to model everything after you. So if you don't shift your decisions and choices with money, if you don't model financial, and I know we had this conversation before the show about how your parents got really serious about money in their 40s.
Yes.
So if you don't shift that for yourself, your kids are actually going to model after you. It doesn't matter what they learn.
It's so true.
Which is why it doesn't really matter what we teach in schools, because as parents, we're their role models. We're the ones that have to lead the way. And so your parents led the way and you found your way back. Yep. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and that is, I mean, my parents did get very serious about money once they were in their 40s, but it's like, they still like never discussed like how much they had, or, like, oh my gosh, is that still so taboo, to like, and so I'm trying to break that myself, like with my friends, like, let's have some open conversations about it, because we can only help each other, but I still like, there's a part of me that's like, cause I wasn't shown that. We weren't talking about how much money things cost growing up.
Yeah. But I'm loving the TikToks and Instagrams of the kids of the 80s of like how absent our parents were without even realizing it. Right. We just had to figure it out on our own.
Absolutely.
And money was one of those things.
It was.
And that's why this show is here.
Yeah.
To have open, honest conversations about money, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And that's how I think people are going to learn and get value from this conversation. Bringing it into astrology. So Ashley's really passionate about astrology, and she's always trying to talk to me about it. And I'm like, I don't really know what this means, because I don't have the language in my in my brain, like it was modeled to you. And I'm like, I don't know what Saturn means.
Yep.
Or Pluto.
That's okay.
Or Neptune.
Yeah.
Or rising or any of that. So she's learning how to like break it down for me. But so it's just in like really like leading head on questions, and then we'll go from there. But like, are certain signs destined to be good with money and certain signs not destined to be good with money?
So I never break it down to just the sun sign, right?
Yeah.
So when I say I'm an Aquarius, I think you shared your Scorpio. Is that correct?
I actually did.
Okay. You actually did. I never break anything down to the sun sign. Right. And I also don't want us to use astrology as like a tool to blame things on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm like that because I'm an Aquarius.
That's right.
Right. Like it justifies bad behavior. So there's so much more to it, right? Like we want to look to see where your Jupiter is in your chart. We want to see like what planets are aspecting Jupiter. We want to see how many planets do you have in your second house of money or your eighth house. Mm-hmm. So we can tell things about someone based on their chart, like, oh, wow, you might love being around power, right? We might look at a chart and say, oh, you might put up with a lot in a relationship because you crave security. So we can tell different things like that, but I would never just boil it down to just one of the 12 signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So that was great. Thanks for not answering my question.
No, I don't
kidding.
think. I know. I don't think there's one sign that's like you're destined to be bad with money because of your sign. So if you're thinking that, listening, throw that out.
That's right.
Right.
You're right. Because it's not an excuse for bad behavior. No matter what personality test you take, no matter what your sign is and all the things, like anybody is capable of having whatever it is that they want in life.
Yes.
What I love about this conversation is from your perspective is that there's what you want in life and then also who you were born to be.
Correct.
And when those two things intersect, I'm sure you see people's lives accelerate and thrive.
Yeah, well, because so many times, astrology just gets lumped in with just like, oh, she's a psychic. I'm not a psychic, right?
No,
I'm not a psychic.
No.
I'm looking at where the planets were when you were born and giving you insight in that. And so, yes, people come to me for prediction, looking where the planets are going and how that's going to affect you. Absolutely. But I think one of the most fun things is looking at a chart saying, this is how maybe you approach this. And people saying, I've never had anyone put that into words. I feel so seen. I feel so validated. And I'll get messages back like, I just sat in tears after the call, just because it's like, you saw who I truly am. And it justified like who I am or how I've reacted to things, or it even justified my life, which that's great. That's a big statement to say, and so it's therapy.
Agreed. Yeah. Self-awareness is.
Self-awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. Lindsay Paoli, who is she's a coach in mind fundamentals, former therapist. Mm-hmm. Same thing. I asked her what her definition of mental wellness was. And she said self-awareness.
Yeah. Right.
Because then you can choose into who you are, stop resisting all the things that you're not.
Correct.
And lean into where you're meant to be. Absolutely. In life. So it's like these little keys, these little nuggets of looking into how the planets were coming together for your destiny, for your future.
Yes.
And I don't know how to say that any differently.
No, that was great. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
What are some, for anyone who may be thinking about wanting to like schedule a call with you or get that kind of insight, what are some ahas that people have? Do they come to you for specifically help with finances? Or is it more of like
if I'm being honest, love is usually the biggest one. Love and career is usually the biggest one. But of course, there are aspects that say, wow, you're going to come into more like a maybe heavier uptick of money. So people love hearing that because a lot of times like money is we lump it in with like, okay, well, if I change careers, but the money's showing. So, okay, that means it's going to be successful. Mm-hmm. Right. So it plays into it, but I don't think people have technically just seeked me out just for money advice. Yeah. But we talk about it.
Career, it's like totally connected, I would say.
Very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love too.
Yeah. 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 No, absolutely. Like what you're looking for in a partner, we can see that in the chart. And again, sometimes it's like I'm willing to put up with bad behavior if there's more stability that it brings to my life. That's just one example that I'm picking on, but it's one that can show up.
Yeah, that's the number one thing when I ask audiences or women what's important to them about money. Yeah. The first answer is security. Yeah. And then we keep digging and digging. And okay, what else? What else? And then we get to some more of the heart of it. But first, it's like we all want money for security. Well, some people value it more heavily than others. But I think also people think that that's what they should want.
True.
With money is like it's security. We could go in a total wormhole about whether or not money really creates the security that you want. True. But I know for you coming onto the show today, you wanted to lean in more to Feng Shui.
Yeah. Well, astrology is an amazing tool.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, but I also want everyone listening to feel like they can apply what I'm saying. And if you're sitting there and you only know your sun sign, you don't know your moon sign, you don't know your rising, it kind of throws away the whole conversation. So if you're interested in learning more about astrology, we can book a service, of course, but Feng Shui can talk about it where everyone listening can apply these things today.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So before we move in that direction, if someone wanted to learn more about the astrology aspect, you have a podcast.
I do.
It's called
Mom and Me Astrology. And so it's me and my mom. And we use our combined 46 years, right, experience, and we break it down. Well, we try. We break it down into just something that's a little bit more palatable, right? We do use the language of astrology because it sounds like a different language, but then we immediately break it down and say like, well, what does this mean? We try to go into all 12 of the signs. We give stories of how it's played out. We look at celebrities' charts as well.
That would be fun
because they just live out the storyline so big. You can't miss it, right? You can totally see it. We talk about how the aspects will affect the United States, how they'll affect technology. So it's great learning. We come live, not live, but we come with a new episode every week.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm excited to listen. So when Spanish, I've always wanted to be fluent in Spanish, and I studied Spanish for like 12 years. And the number one piece of advice people always gave me was like, one, go to a Spanish speaking country and embed yourself, but then two, watch the novellas.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So by listening to your podcast, it's a way of being around the language, and same thing with money. Actually, the more you involve yourself with the concepts of it, and the more you are around the language of it, the more it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Feng Shui.
Okay.
What does it mean and why is it important? And I know that there's like a money part to how it works.
Correct.
So let's dig into that.
Yeah. So often when I tell people I'm a Feng Shui consultant, they say like, well, one, they might say, oh my gosh, tell me more. But other times they might just say, well, oh, I have a red door, so I'm good. Right. Or, oh, that has to do with like your bed facing a certain direction. And absolutely, those things are correct. There's a lot of rules to Feng Shui, but the way that I've loved teaching it is I say, have you ever created a vision board? Okay. So we cut out the little pieces of newspaper and put it on, or not magazines, and put it on a board, and we put it up and we say, this is what I want to create for 2023. So if you ever created a vision board, that tells me that you believe in the power of seeing something and creating it.
Or you want to.
Right? Absolutely.
Someone's told you that it works.
True. True. So I say Feng Shui is the same way. The walls of your home are the largest vision boards you'll ever create. It's your space. It's your environment. And so we need to mirror our space based on what we want. So just an example, this doesn't have anything to do with money, but it's a very easy example where I'll go into someone's home and they'll say, I really want a relationship, and I can't seem to manifest a relationship. And you go in and, okay, there's a couple different pictures of single women, just like one woman, posed, or, there's not pillows on either side of the bed, or the closets are totally packed. So I might say, well, where would the person, if someone came into your life, where would they sleep? Where would they put their items? And you've basically honored the single woman on your walls. You're telling the universe that that's okay, that that's what I want. I want more of it, because you're seeing it every single day. So is that not going into like our
everything?
Everything. So that's just one example, right? But we can do the same thing with money. Everyone has a financial corner in their home, and you kind of have to do a little visual. You walk into your space, and it's the back left corner of the property. So think about where like the walls come together. That's the financial corner. And it's amazing because I'll go into homes and I have countless stories, but it'll be maybe a room that they've closed off because it's cluttered. There's a lot of stuff going on. They just close the door. So I see that. I'm not going to ever, accuse anyone of anything. So I'll just say, well, tell me what's going on with the finances in your life. And they'll say like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't even look at my bank accounts right now. Okay, well, we've created that same exact story in the home. The exact same thing, right? Or we'll go to the financial area and they'll have a money tree, right? Because maybe they've picked up a Feng Shui book. We have the money tree in the financial area, but it'll be so pitiful, right? Only 2 little leaves left. Oh, tell me about your finances, right? Oh, they might even say it's pitiful, right? Or they're struggling. Okay, we've put a little plant here that's struggling. So we've created it. So I'll tell the story about what happened to me when I put my notice in, right? With my corporate position. So I was hosting a baby shower at my house. My time wasn't totally up at the hotel, and hosted a baby shower. And at the end of the baby shower, one of the moms took all like the half drunken
Drunk.
half drunk water bottles
Yeah.
and was pouring it into my plants.
Okay.
Cute, right? Well, the one plant had taken on so much water that it got heavy, and the stand that it was on totally broke out.
During the shower?
Like at the very end, because the
Mhm.
people were leaving. So she was taking the water and filling up the plant. And the legs of the table that it was on broke out. And of course, the table broke and the plant came tumbling down and the pot broke. No big deal, right? I didn't think
Mhm.
anything of it. But my mom, a couple days later, had said like, "Oh, how did the shower go?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it was all good." I'm like, at the end though, that little plant that you, not little, but it had broke. And she goes, "Well, that had to happen because it was anchoring my financial corner." And she said, "You just gave your notice. You basically just told the universe, I'm walking away from my salary." And the plant collapsed. Because technically my finances I was putting an end to it. That
Mhm.
paycheck is no longer going to come in. So my mom said, you have a choice. If I was you, I'd go out and get a bigger plant stand, right? Because it
Mhm.
was kind of low. And so it's like, well, I could pick something the same size, or I could set the intention of this next phase is going to even create more prosperity than I've had in the past.
That's really cool.
So sometimes we put these things into place, right? We might say, I'm going to put this big, strong tree in my financial corner. And then maybe something comes through from the finances where you say, oh my gosh, I got a bonus I didn't know I was going to get, or I got a raise. Or
everybody just stopped to say, wait a minute. What do I need to do in my financial corner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or it might be something where you've made a change and then we see the effect of it in the home. So it's like the chicken or the egg.
Mm-hmm.
It can go both ways.
What would be an example of that if you've made a change and then you see the effect in your home?
Yeah, like about me putting my notice in,
Okay.
and then the plant breaking, essentially.
Wow.
It can no longer continue the way that it was.
Yeah, so that's a physical manifestation and change into where we want to be, where we want to go. Ashley, do you have something to say? Ashley has a question. Come on over, Ash.
Question. What if someone in their left, like the back left corner, there's like a couch in that corner or a sink, or like for me, example, it's like my kitchen. So my kitchen sink is right there in the back left corner. Or sometimes people will put a couch in the corner of their house. So like, what would you do in those corners?
Absolutely. So yeah, we still have a functioning home, right? I never encourage people to live in a home that looks like a model home, right? And that's something that I'm going to go off on a tangent here. We've taken so much personality out of homes, like the whole tan look or like just the grays. And it's like, when I'm in homes and I don't even know that children live there, that's concerning to me. That's concerning to me that I don't know children in the home once I'm in the home for 30 or 40 minutes.
Because it's like whitewashing things.
Yeah. We've totally just like cleaned our personalities out of the home. But to Ashley's point, yes, you might have a couch there. You might have a sink. You might have a bathroom. Absolutely. We can work with all those things. Basically, I'm saying is use that area of your home to manifest what you want in life. So if you're saying, I want a raise, I'd put something there that shows growth, put a plant there. The couch example, if the couch is pushed into the corner, I might say, hey, bring that couch 6 inches. Oh my goodness, 6 inches off the wall to create some fluidity, right? That there's space, there's room to grow. There's more space, right? Because we put it in the corner, it's kind of set. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If we float it though, it's like, oh my gosh, now the energy can work around it.
Gotcha.
So those are just, a couple examples. Is that what you were kind of thinking of?
Yeah, that's a great question. A great question. I have no idea what this means for my house. My brain is already starting to think, okay, if I walk through the front door of my house and then we have a hallway that goes right down to our bedrooms, you kind of walk and go right. And then if you were to walk through the front door of our house and go straight, you would run into our kitchen and our living room. Okay. So where's the left corner?
So the back left, you can't go any further back. Okay. Is that the couch?
That's the couch or the master bed? Okay, my couch. Oh, okay.
It's in.
Yeah. Got it. Ashley's telling me it's.
Is it your primary bedroom or your living room?
It's our living room.
Your living room. Okay. Yeah. So I would look at the artwork, especially if anything was like, let's say it was like a beautiful picture of like just a barren desert.
It's just our family. It's our kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I might say like, wow, do you put a lot of financial focus on the children?
Yes. They're sucking us dry.
Well,
Just
okay.
kidding. I'm kidding. We love you.
Yeah, right. But
Yes,
it is
we
something
do.
where I might say, like, if that is what you want to continue to do, absolutely. But if you might be thinking, of course, we want to focus on the kids, right? Of course, everyone wants financial success for their children, right? Maybe I might say you take those down and put something there that shows like growth. And again, I'm talking to someone, if you make your living out of doing this, I'm not saying you necessarily need to do that. But if anyone's listening where they're saying, yeah, we have had our children, especially if the children are grown and we still have like the baby pictures in the financial area, I might say, wow, have your children, your adult children, have they been reaching out for money? And they'll have stories like, oh yeah, this one lost their job, so there was rent given, I say, take them out of the financial area. There's a place for the children in the home. Maybe that's not the strongest.
Gotcha. That's a really great way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just say, look at that area, take a very kind of step away and look at it from a different perspective about what is that saying? Like, I'm just even looking at like your mermaids up here, mermaids, like, are they real? Are they not? When we want to put something a little bit more like solid there, like, oh, my finances are obtainable. They're reachable. They're not just this mythical creature.
Yeah.
So you have to look into the symbology of it. And I think it's one of the most fun things that I like to do is like, what is this telling me about your life?
Sure. For someone who doesn't know what they don't know, and Feng Shui's never been a part of their repertoire, where do they get started in learning?
Sure. Well, there's great books out there. I don't necessarily have any off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have an e-workbook that I have that walks you through the main corners. And it also is a journal where it asks you, like, what do you want from money? What does financial security look like to you? Because we don't all have the same thing that we want from a relationship or from money or for helpful people, all the different areas that we have in the home. So it kind of gets you to think about, what do you want? And that can sometimes then help us place artwork or statues or just curate the items that we already have in our home.
Yeah, the symbolism.
Yeah.
Does it work in a bedroom the same way? If I was looking at my bedroom, is it the corners of the house, or is it a particular room that you can also set up in that way?
Absolutely. So yes, we are going to lay the bagua, which that's some terminology I'll throw at you, right? The bagua over the home. So if we go back to the financial area, if you have a 2-story home, technically you'd have a financial area downstairs and upstairs. And technically we'd even take that outside if you have a yard. So we can lay it over the home. But like, if let's say you're renting a room inside someone's home, you can absolutely lay the bagua just over your space.
Sure.
So some people do, they go into every room and then say, okay, well, now let's lay the bagua and do it over the home and the room. I don't necessarily think that's necessary unless it's a space that's used separately from the home.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Wow. We're all like, wow. Yeah. So many questions. This is so cool. So let me tie it back to my listeners about why this is such an important conversation, is that our unconscious mind is operating 95% of our brain activity and our reality, and we're only present to 5%. So to your point, the things that we see, the conversations that we have, the way that we manifest, and even with astrology, there's so much that our unconscious mind is creating for us that we don't even realize.
Absolutely. And so many people will say, are you a psychic, when I come into their house? Because they feel like I've said to them, what's going on? I said, I'm not a psychic. I'm just reading what your space is telling me. Because it is, we've created it because we believe it, or because it is under there somewhere where we're not seeing it. But let's like, if I go back to that woman that I was talking about with the single person, you're at the back of TJ Maxx or whatever it is, and you saw this lonely woman and you resonated with her. Maybe because you just went through a breakup, or maybe because that's how you see yourself. So you said, I like you. I'm going to bring you home. I'm going to put you on my wall.
I'm going to be you.
I'm going to be you. And we're just, yeah. And just and then we're putting it on the wall, which is like, we amplify it, right? Because we don't put bad news on the wall.
Yeah, no.
Or like, even as children run home with their little art projects. Mommy, put it on the wall, put it on the fridge. We've taught children at a young age that what we put on the walls, we're honoring. We're saying, this is good. And we do the same thing with artwork. And there's some scary artwork out there, right? I've had to talk with people about taking down scary artwork.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think about my husband, who may or may not be listening to this show.
Yes.
And just thinking about when I first met him, and still to this day, we have a lot of baby pictures up.
Yeah.
A lot of baby pictures, which is like our kids are 12 and 15 now.
Yeah.
And that it's probably time for us to shed some of that and
Absolutely.
let go of it.
Yes.
Because unconsciously we're creating an experience of wanting our kids to still be young.
Yeah.
Versus being where we are, where we're headed. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Wow.
Even another example of that would be, I was in someone's office and all their awards were from like 1994, 1997. And I'm like, okay, have you gotten any recognition lately? Like, no, I haven't. I'm like, okay, well, why would you be okay with us taking down these old awards? Because you're kind of saying like, I've gotten my recognition.
This is who I was.
This is who I was. I'm like, take it down, make room for the new. And it's amazing the stories that come through. Because I feel like just silly saying it, like, well, a couple months later, they reached out and they said they got team member of the month, but it happens because we're creating room for that growth. And it's like, are we stunting our children by
holding on to?
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would say.
To an extent, of course, if
Sure.
someone's listening and they say, oh, I have my favorite picture of them when they were 2 years old. Oh my gosh, keep that up, but it's when it's like done in excess or when there's not room then for the new to go up. Because
you have to grow.
Yes.
If we're not growing, we're dying.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. That's what I've heard. I've heard that said.
I guess I could hear that. I could see that.
But it's, if we're holding on to the past and then questioning why we're not where we want to be.
Absolutely.
Or why we're not seeing progress. And that's really important too. Because I think that tying back to the concept of security, we hold on to the past from a place of security.
Sure.
And the growth to the point of you leaving your job, stepping into the unknown is so scary.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I'm hoping, I'm thinking that you would have some thoughts about that. Like, how do we use Feng Shui? How do we use astrology?
Mm-hmm.
Ashley comes in, she's been learning for the last, 2 years, Ash, about astrology. And for her, it gave her a lot of permission just to be herself.
Yeah.
Which freed her up instead of holding on to the past and trying to interpret what the past is. Love therapy, love therapists.
Yes.
But if we hold on to the past, how are we looking forward? And how can we use these tools to create the future that we really want? So we had you said something so powerful, and I want the listeners to hear this before we started the show about where we're at in 2023 and where we're moving in the world. Because I had said my vision for women, what I really want for women is for us to be the financial leaders of the world.
Yeah.
And in our lives.
Yeah.
So that was like, I just threw a lot at you, but I think
no, that's okay.
Know where I'm going with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we use this to create our destinies?
Yeah. Well, understanding your astrology chart, yes, can give a lot of validation, and it can give you kind of these stepping points and some dates of saying like, yeah, you should be going through a change right now. Like, you're not just going crazy. You're not just misinterpreting something. Your chart says you're supposed to be going through a change. So sometimes just like that validation of saying, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like we don't just feel like you're in your own head. And same with the Feng Shui is like, think about you want to lose weight. Okay. What do? We go to the cupboard. We start taking out all the sugar, all the cookies, whatever it is. We make a physical change in the home to support our health goals. So we're saying the same thing with money. You want to make a change with money, make a physical change in the home, because every time you see it, you're reminded that that's what my goal is. Right. From an astrology standpoint, though, we have Pluto moving into Aquarius later this month. I think it's like March 24th off the top of my head, but right. Okay. We're close enough. We haven't seen this since 1777. So
y'all,
none of us,
I'm on YouTube like, what?
So none of us have lived through this as a collective. Now, one thing about astrology is I do sometimes feel like it can be like fear mongering, and I do not like that at all. Right. So I do want to just calm everyone down. We've seen Pluto shift signs before. We've just never seen it in Aquarius. So we could go back to 2008 when Pluto moved into Capricorn. Well, Pluto is transformative. Some people could say like destructive, right? But it changes what no longer can exist. In Capricorn is the banking systems, right? It's the government, it's the real estate. And so we saw, okay, Pluto move into Capricorn in 2008. What did we see?
Yeah.
We saw the transformation.
Meltdown.
Yes, of the money and of all the systems that we knew. Now we're in the bookend of it. Since 2022, Pluto's been in the final degrees of Capricorn. And we've almost been like, is this deja vu or are we back in 2008? There's been a sense. It's been different, right? Back then the housing was really low. Now it's really high. So it's not the exact same story, but it's the bookend to it. So we're getting ready for Pluto to move into Aquarius. Now, Capricorn, I know I keep going back, but I just want people to understand Capricorn, it is the government. It's the men. Capricorn's a male dominated energy. So if we look back, because hindsight's always 2020, it's so much easier to see, right? Sure. We've seen more millionaires, more billionaires created. We've seen this growth. We've seen these companies get so big. And there's been a huge focus on what are the men doing?
What are they doing?
What are they doing? And some of it's not been in the best light, right? Like what's Bill Cosby been doing? Like what we're seeing, there's been a big focus on the men, but we've also seen all these men rise to the top, like your Elon Musk, and I can't even think of the new ones, right? But we've seen it all. Aquarius is more of a feminine sign. Okay, so this is going to go out till 2044 or something.
The next 20 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see it overnight. There's not just going to be like one awakening and everyone's going to change their mind. I'm not saying that by any means, but we're going to see, just like we got out of this since 2008, we're going to see it over the course of the next 20 years. I would think the rise of the feminine. Aquarius also does rule the technology. So, I do think like AI, these things are going to get big. We're going to see some big challenges and growth in these areas. So it's more than just the women, but especially if we're aiming towards women and saying like, can you do this? Can you take financial control? Can you be the breadwinner? Whatever it is, the power is shifting to us.
Yes. Hell yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We're better with women, I think, are better than with money.
Yeah.
I don't know how that relates to astrology, but in my experience, I think I tie it back to having really studied ancestral patterns and how women started in the homes where men would be gone for days at a time. And we had to run everything while they were gone. So somehow that shifted, especially in the 19th, 20th century, especially like during the 1900s, where things shifted for women somehow. But
yeah,
I think that I do believe that we're better with money for so many reasons. One, that we can multitask.
Yeah. Multitasking is a big thing.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday was doing something at the home and I was getting ready to go grocery shopping and I was like, okay, babe, I have a call at 4:00. And so it was 3:59. I'm getting ready to leave for the grocery store. And he's like, don't you have a call? I was like, I can do two things at once.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So as we're rounding out the show, we have, I don't know, maybe like another 15 minutes or so. Ashley will tell us when the countdown is, but what's on your heart from this whole conversation? I do believe that our listeners are going to want you back.
Okay.
And we would love to continue this conversation, but thinking about the modern woman, thinking about finances, thinking about these shifts that are happening in the planets and the shifts that we could be making in our world. What's on your heart to share with our listeners today?
Well, I would just say like, if you've been teetering on the fence about like, should I pursue my passion or should I go for it? I would say do it.
Yeah.
Not that you just need me to like validate that, but it's just, I think something that we discussed prior to the show that we haven't talked about yet is this idea of being in the healing space and charging. So especially if anyone is saying like, oh, I want to do that, but I have a talent, so I don't want to charge people for it, right?
Yes.
I feel like people, I just need to share it with people, but I don't necessarily need to get a paycheck for it. No.
Yes.
You can charge. You can charge. It's a talent. Like it's the same with astrology, like just for going to school for something, like you study, it's a craft. It's not just something that, well, I was born with it, so I have to give it away for free. Like you charge your worth because you're providing an amazing service, right? You're providing something that changes people's life, just like you, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure people come back to you and say like, you've changed my life.
Yeah, I'm like, well, you changed your life.
Well, right? Sure.
You did the work. Clarity is value. And because, even just using Ashley as a testimony and a story in her work with astrology, none of us, and maybe this, your mom was is an astrologer, so it could be different in your household, but like, there aren't many of us who get permission from our parents to say, hey, I give you permission to go do everything that you want. And I think that like my kids are hearing that in my household because I didn't hear that in my household growing up, that we need validation
Absolutely.
and clarity and permission to say, this is who you were born to be.
Yeah. And I know I was very lucky in that regards to have supportive parents in that way. So if you're not getting it from your parents, yeah, you can seek out these tools to better understand yourself, or even say like, how can I take on the power to create the change within my home?
Mm-hmm.
That's way easier. Moving a couch or adding a plant is way easier than going and quitting your corporate job.
Totally. Well, and the truth is you all are spending a lot of money on your homes anyway.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's no different than before you're about to change. Sometimes you cut bangs, right? Or you
Never a good idea.
But you're telling people I've changed.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it's like that is easier to do than saying what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for example, right, I cut bangs. I did, yeah. And 2 weeks later, I finally got a divorce. I'd been wanting it, but I just didn't know, like, how is it going to happen? Like, when is it going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you cut bangs, like, again, I was telling the universe, I've changed. I hadn't made the change yet, but it was easier than doing the work of what I needed to say.
Yeah.
And what I needed to do.
Yeah.
This is no different. Make the change in your home. Right. It's one thing we'd even talk about, like from a feng shui standpoint too, is like, maybe you've just discussed this before, but like, how do you treat your money?
Mm-hmm.
Do you crumble it up and just throw it in the drawer, or do you have it nice folded and
organized?
Fold? Do you have a sacred place that you store your money?
Yeah. That's a good conversation.
Right?
Yeah. I like to have all my bills in order, and we don't carry a lot of cash anymore, but still, like, it's a great way for you as a listener to think about that. Like, how is your relationship with money showing up?
Yes.
Like literally showing up in your life. And that's the same thing with bank accounts. We were talking about how you have different money in different places for different things.
Yes.
It's one of the first things that I teach my clients is you've got to get out of this like all in one place, because you can never tell what's really going on in your bank account if you were just to open it up and you're like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
So having money in places for different things is also clarity.
Yeah, I think I have money in probably 12 different places.
Yeah, me too.
12 different accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. It's like, boom, it's so much easier in a moment.
Yeah.
But how you treat your money, this is a really great way, I think, to wrap up this whole conversation. Ashley just gave us the 4-minute sign. So we have 4 minutes.
Yeah. It's like, don't put your purse on the floor.
My bag's on the floor. Shoot. Why? And why is that?
Because again, think like, what do we put on the floor? Trash.
Mm-hmm.
Like we wouldn't put our wedding ring on the floor.
Mm-mm.
Right. We wouldn't put, I can think of a bunch of things, right?
Yeah.
But like, if it's on the floor, we're kind of saying like, we don't assign it as much value. Right. So I always say like, keep the purse off the floor.
Gotcha. Get some hooks.
Hang it up. Hooks. Yeah, absolutely. Or have a designated place too in the home. It's like funny, like when you see like how men treat their money, if we want to go back to the male female thing, like men, they always put their wallet in the same place, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Where women, like our purses could be anywhere. Like, oh, where was it last? Who was in my purse last? It's like, no, like you deserve that too. So I say, even just have a designated place in the home that you keep your purse.
Yeah.
Give yourself that permission.
That's right. My husband will never go into my purse. He's like, nope.
Okay.
I'm not doing it. I'm like, okay, fine. He used to annoy me, but I'm like, well, thank you for holding sacred that space.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. This was such a great conversation, Kate.
Thank you.
I learned so much.
Thank you. Do you want me to leave everyone with like a tip of something they can do for money?
Yeah. We've got
like
a couple minutes left.
Okay.
Go for it.
So one, I might suggest if there's anywhere that you keep money in the home, to put a little mirror with it. So you could literally like break off the, an old compact, like a makeup compact, just take that mirror, a craft mirror, and put it in with your money and set the intention of amplifying your money, doubling your money, right? And the other one would be to take 8 $1 bills and put them in your fridge.
Okay.
And we're going to set the intention of always having cold, hard cash.
Cold, hard cash.
Yes. So not in your freezer. We don't want to freeze your funds.
Okay.
In the fridge, somewhere that you can see them. So you can put them all like in a little baggie, Ziploc bag, put them somewhere in the fridge where you can see it. So every time you're opening your fridge, you're seeing it and that intention, right? You're hear my words, cold, hard cash, right? And it's like, it gets into that 95% of ourselves that we were talking about earlier.
What's the significance of the number 8?
Yeah. The infinity sign.
I love that.
Yeah.
Gold, solid gold, cold hard cash. I love that. How are we doing on time, Ash? 2 minutes. Okay. So with 2 minutes to go, let's do a little recap.
Okay.
That was a lot.
I know,
That
right?
was a lot. And for our listeners, one thing is who you're being in the world shows up whether you realize it or not. That's a takeaway that I'm
Absolutely.
going to take away from today's conversation. Be mindful of where you're putting your things, what you have on your walls.
Yes,
It's all communicating something.
it is.
It's so profound.
Yeah. And two, like if maybe you can't see it, like have a friend come over. If you're like, I'm not in the position to have a Feng Shui consult or whatever it is, have someone else look at it and say, what does this mean to you? What are their first words?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to get too deep about it. Just like, what is the initial things?
Those are your values.
Yeah.
Whether you realize it or not.
Right.
I love that. I love that. So be mindful of that. As another key takeaway is charge your worth.
Yes.
You're worth it.
Yes, you're worth it. And just because you're in that art space doesn't mean you can't be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I think maybe I shared, but like when I say I'm an astrologer, like, oh, for fun, like no,
like legit.
like this is what I do.
And I'm like very successful, right?
Yeah. You can too.
You can
Yeah,
too.
you can too.
And take risks.
Take risks.
Take risks. Make moves.
And don't let other people like make you fearful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like even when I had the power to say I'm leaving, you know, I was hearing all that, like, you know, they were projecting their fears on me.
Gotcha.
That's
I
not
gotcha.
fair.
That's not, yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for this conversation
Thank
today,
you
Kate.
so
Where can
much.
people find you?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at _Kate Wind, at the Mom and Me Astrology podcast, and then on my website, thekatewind.com.
I love that. And you're located here in Las Vegas.
I am. Yes.
And you help people all over the world.
I do.
And I can't wait to have you back.
Oh, thank you so much. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you for creating a well-rounded conversation when it comes to finances. I'm so
yeah.
appreciative of that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening today, everyone. I'm Lisa Chastain, your host of Real Money with my guest, Kate Wynn. We'll be back next week with a brand new conversation, brand new topic right here on Real Money.